Yeah, sure thing.
Hey, you sold that car yet?
Yeah, sold it to Carvana.
Oh, I thought you were selling to that guy.
The guy who wanted to pay me in foreign currency, no interest, over 36 months? Yeah, no. Carvana gave me an offer in minutes, picked it up, and paid me on the spot. It was so convenient.
Just like that.
Yeah.
No hassle.
None.
That is super convenient.
Sell your car to Carvana and swap hassle for convenience. Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast, where we deep dive into the best matches in AEW history. Brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network and your host, Sam Brown.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. A special shout out to anyone who is joining me live on the stream. Very exciting day. I am hosting the Golden Wombats, the prestigious, the one and only AEW Match Guide, Golden Wombats. I'll just get up for those who are joining me. Shout outs to Dale M in the stream. It's 3 a.m. where he is. Gosh, that is an early start, Dale. It's 10 p.m. where I am, so it is going quite well. I've just clicked on the camera. Look, thoughts and prayers for my technology. This computer that I've got is absolutely old as hell, and I can hear the fan just working overtime at the moment. So, look, this may all go tits up in, very quick fashion. And, of course, the Australian internet, not the greatest thing in the world. But we'll see how we go. We're here with a live stream, and it's going to be fun. I'm just going to crack open one of my better beers. A zero alcohol alternative. It's it is nighttime here, so it's not the morning for me, but still trying to be healthy, all that sort of stuff. It's a new year, new me, all that. I actually don't do New Year's resolutions, funny, but I don't normally go into like personal stuff for me on the podcast, but I figure we're live, why the hell not? I don't do resolutions. I try and have a yearly theme for myself, and this year it's the year of intention. From what I can see, it seems like my camera is just not working, so I'm just going to switch it off, and we'll try and preserve the internet that way. But I have yearly themes rather than yearly resolutions, and it's just something I came across. It's not an original thing. I discovered it following a YouTuber who suggested it, and this year for me is the year of intention. Andy in the chat, glad to have you on, mate. Happy New Year to you too. I have this year's the year of intention. One of the things for me is being intentional about what I put into my body. I'm not like, it's not like I'm an unhealthy person, but as with a lot of us, I think we could all be a little bit more healthy. So that's part of what I'm hoping to do. And having a zero alcohol beverage is a start for this. The nerves were kind of like, oh, maybe you should have a drink, Sam, but we'll see how it goes. We'll find out what happens. If this all goes belly up, who knows what you'll see me doing tomorrow night. So, but look, thanks again for joining me. Oh man, there's so many people jumping in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's popping in saying Happy New Year to everyone else. Pop in the chat what you're looking to do and what you're looking forward to in 2025, because this has been an incredible time for me relaunching this podcast. I've been so excited and so happy with the feedback I've got. I know that certain podcast episodes I've got feedback in the back channels from various places high up in AEW, and in some cases the wrestlers themselves, which is beyond overwhelming to hear back. It's been absolute honor and privilege to jump in and dive into the AEW Match Guide again. I've always found, and I think everyone who's come on the podcast with me has said a sort of similar thing, that it's good to really focus on the things that you love in wrestling. I think too often we can get wrapped up in the stuff that is shit, and there's always crap stuff going on. Like if you're looking for it, there's always going to be something that's going to piss you off a little bit. It's going to frustrate you. And we're going to talk a bit about that in this thing, because we've got a few things. The Wet Fart of the Year award for 2024 is a hotly contested thing by some people who should not be hotly contesting for that. But coming on the Match Guide, getting to focus on that is, and doing it releasing a podcast every fortnight with it has been fantastic, and the guests I've had on, I've got Andy, got Gareth, both of those guys have been on, and yeah, it's been absolutely so much fun, and I think is good. I hope it's good for your fandom as well. You guys who listen in, who give me feedback, I hope that you guys are getting a bit out of it as well and getting a chance to do the same thing. Like, maybe you watch along with, maybe you watch the matches that I review. I hope you do. Apparently, they're now on Max. I've been able to watch them all the time because I've got AEW Plus through Triller. Because I live in Australia, we don't have the sort of insanity. But I saw a tweet just before I went live that apparently the whole AEW back catalogue's up on Max. So, what a great thing to do if you've got some time. Go back and watch some of those amazing matches that we reviewed on the match guide and listen to the match guides and then come back and give me some feedback. Yeah, look, also it's fantastic being on the Social Suplex. This is probably like one of the best weeks we've ever had on the Social Suplex. In the presenters chat, everyone's just cracking champagne, and not just because it's New Year's Eve, of course. Like early this week, just a couple of days ago, the girls from Tunnel Talk had the freaking Young Bucks on. That's insane. And they got to ask them about, taking their vests off and having bare chests. I mean, come on. Absolutely wild that kind of stuff is happening on the network. And of course, the the FOH draft, apparently that's breaking all their records that they've had. If you haven't listened to the FOH draft, it's something that Keeping It Strong Style and the guys at One Nation Radio do every year. They take the business to task and tell things to get the fuck out of here. It's the only paid content we do here on the Social Suplex podcast network. That's not true, actually. The Kiss Boys have got a Patreon now, but it's one of the rare bits of things that we make people pay for, and it's well worth the $5. I think you can even pay less if you're a bit stingy and if you're a bit of a scab, but pay them 10, pay them 15, pay them $50, man. They deserve it. But yeah, it's absolutely it's been a massive week, and I am happy to continue it with the prestigious Golden Wombats. So I'm just going to quickly look at the chat. We've got Andy. We're going to regain the Border Gavaskar Trophy in Sydney for our New Year's Eve in Australia. Heck yes. It's looking that way. Look, I'm never going to count my chickens before they hatch with Australian cricket these days. Not the early 2000s anymore like I used to. I grew up believing and knowing that Australia would always win. Australia sometimes finds a way to lose these things, particularly against a team like India. But hopefully the Border Gavaskar Trophy is coming our way. Dale says 2025, let's carbs, more New Japan. Dale, both of those things are wise. I haven't watched New Japan forever. I think the last thing I've watched in New Japan was probably the last Ospreay match when they did that the War Games match, and it was a good match. It was mixed. I'm not here to review that, but I think that was the last thing. And I put on, after listening to the Keeping It Strong Style Wrestle Kingdom preview show, I put on the tag match that they suggested, the final tag match, the go home tag match for the Road to Tokyo Dome, and man, it was like putting on a pair of old boots. It was so good to be back in Korakuen Hall. These blokes in the ring, 4 blokes just going at it hard, selling, no selling, the timing of everything perfect, the way that it's staged, incredible. Yeah, that match was so fun. And I came away, and I came away also, Dale, thinking more New Japan Pro Wrestling. And look, if Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are unhappy in AEW, as sort of rumors seem to be going around the traps a little bit that they are, maybe not super happy with their presentation, etc., and they've decided that they want to spend more time in Japan. Bloody hell, that's an enticing proposition to me. Yeah, that was a great. If you haven't watched that, it's probably goes for about 25 minutes, half an hour if you include all the entrances and everything, and just like a great palate wetter. And it's like similar enough that if you haven't watched since Wrestle Kingdom last year, like similar to me, right? It's similar enough that everything feels comfortable and you're not feeling like you're taking too much of a big jump in, but it gives you, at the same time, it gives you a bit of a lay of the land. Like, things have changed a bit. The main event is Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino. Those guys were not in main event contention this time last year, And on the other side, you've got Ishii, who of course we all know and love, but then Rohei Oya. Oh God, I've definitely pronounced that wrong. But that's someone who I'm very unfamiliar with, but really impressive at the same time. I know the Kiss Boys, they've got big raps on him, so definitely worth doing. Less carbs, more New Japan, can definitely say that. So if anyone else wants to drop things in the chat, I will do so. We're going to get into the AEW match guide shortly, but before we do, I do want to just plug a couple of things. The Discord, we just hit 400 users of the Social Suplex Discord. If you are not a member of the Social Suplex Discord, it's well worth jumping in. If you find that social media in other places is like a little bit more toxic, not a great place to be, not somewhere that you find, excitement in, and that kind of bolsters up your wrestling fandom, then the Social Suplex Discord is the perfect place to go. We've got, really good members there. The trolling is like all in good spirits, like it's the closest thing I can compare it to is like a great forum from the 2000s, like a great forum. And, the Gen Z is out there. They're not going to have a clue what I'm talking about. But it's just a good place to be. And a good place to talk about wrestling. You can talk about all the different kinds of all the different podcasts we've got on the network. You can talk about all the different things we've got going on, and then all of the different promotions. And then there's all sorts of off wrestling topic things you can chat about as well. So first plug the Discord. Second thing, I should mention as well, Chris Things. This is another great thing that's happening in Social Suplex. Chris Things from Wrestle Art with Chris Things podcast. He's involved in a book, The Way of the Blade 2, which will be heavily focused on AEW apparently. So that's done through Jonathan Snowden with Hybrid Shoot. Another just exciting thing that's happening. Kosei Fujita is a great TMDK rookie too. Yes, thanks Dale. I've also heard good things about him. Can't remember anything I've seen of his, but also heard great things about him. So a book, Chris Things, Way of the Blade 2, I'll be getting that as soon as it releases. That was incredible. It's a sequel to another book that Jonathan Snowden put out with another writer, and kind of going into wrestling matches with a lot of blood, which is something that we all love here. And we're all pro blood in this podcast. We're all pro blood and guts, and that book kind of goes into these matches that have got that going on seriously. So that I'll also say, subscribe to the Social Suplex YouTube channel. We're nearly at 1,000 members. That's pretty awesome. 1,000 subscribers, sorry. So if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe, hit like. That'll help us get the word out there, and it'll make sure that you don't miss anything that we do here on Social Suplex, as this will be going up on the podcast feed, but there are the odd live streams that people do on this, worth checking out and worth subscribing to, and you get the clips as well, which is handy. And also, if you are listening on the podcast feed, we would love it if you could rate and review this podcast. It just helps the name get out, and we've been getting some good reviews of Social Suplex and also of the other podcasts on the network as well. So thank you to everyone who rates and reviews and likes and subscribes and does all those things that we know that content creators want you to do to make the world go round. But without further ado, I'm going to take a swig of my beer, and we're going to get into the AEW match guide, the Golden Wombats. So just give me a second here. There we go. And the first cab off the rank is Rookie of the Year. So if you're watching live, you'll see our beautiful live presentation. You'll have seen the beautiful Golden Wombat that everyone gets awarded here officially. Gareth says 17 minutes in, and Sam finally gets to the point. Thanks, Gareth. Love you too, mate. So Rookie of the Year, we have nominated, and this is purely, before I go in, this is purely my awards, right? Like, it's there's going to be stuff in here that's highly opinionated towards me. You may agree or you may disagree with me. If you disagree, jump in the chat and put it in there. If not, hit me up on Twitter at Sir Samuel, or jump on the Sir_Samuel, I should say, or jump on the Social Suplex Discord and show me in the AEW match guide section of that. Tell me what you thought and who you thought should have won it. Now, Rookie of the Year. So I I've divided up Rookie of the Year and Debutant of the Year. So Rookie of the Year is someone that I class as of not having like international / widespread exposure. It's a bit tenuous. Like there's a bit of grey area. Debutant is someone who has. So, for instance, Ospreay, Okada, they technically debuted in AEW this year, but I don't think it's fair to call them a rookie, right? Whereas guys like Mariah May, been in Stardom, but she's not a veteran by any means. She's still relatively young. Perfect example, Harley Cameron, who is one of the nominees here, has barely ever wrestled anywhere else. So she's exactly that. Guys like Beast Mortos, a bit more of a grey area, right? But, hasn't really had widespread. And it's a new gimmick. So anyway, Rookie of the Year, nominations. Let's get to it. Nominations. Commander Disrespect is Crazy Sam. See, I thought Commander debuted last year, but that would be disrespectful if he had debuted this year. So I apologize, Commander. As I said, this is all my opinion anyway. So, whatever. Hologram is the first nominee. Made a real splash, a gimmick. Unfortunately, got injured, but was getting a real push, and the crowd was really getting into him. I think he was one of the people that benefited from that Collision residency in Arlington, Texas. Second one, Mariah May. Her first match, I checked. Her first match in AEW was on the 1st of January. So technically, she was a rookie for this year. Obviously, made a huge splash. Had a giant program with Tony Storm, and has had a number of high-profile matches. So definitely a rookie that deserves nomination here. The Beast Mortos. Man, I love the Beast Mortos. I actually, when he debuted, another one who debuted, around that Arlington, Texas sort of time, Gareth, Tony Storm is a shout for rookie. She only had 2 matches, mate. Hold your jets, cool your jets, mate. Beast Mortos, I actually pitched on Twitter that he should beat Serpentico in 7-0 in a best out of 7 series, and Serpentico replied saying something to the effect of he doesn't, why do you hate me? Because Beast Mortos would just smash him. He does a lot of jobs, Beast Mortos, but I feel like if they just gave him a few more wins, he could really be obviously he's a great worker, but he's kind of got I can see the crowd just chanting boost, boost, boost at him. Anyone who follows rugby will be familiar with a prop from South Africa who has played, I think, nearly 100 test matches. And his nickname is the Beast. And the crowd gets so behind him. And they could just, if they found that, they could just supplant that kind of the presentation sort of thing and the way the crowd interacts with him straight onto Beast Mortos. If he's in Australia in Grand Slam, I'm going to try and get a chant started going, he's a fucking beast. He's a fucking beast. He's a fucking beast. And we'll see if that catches on. But that's gonna be something I'll try and get started. The Outrunners also, made a huge splash, hugely popular on social media, and sort of started picking up some wins. And had a pretty high profile partnership with FTR, which I assume is done for the minute. I kind of hoped that there would be more from that, but they sort of put a bookend in it. But someone said that the Rock and Roll Express are going to be coming along and doing stuff with them, which I love the idea of at the start of 2025 for them. And then Harley Cameron, who is just entertainment personified. She debuted this year. What an absolute star, and I'm not just saying this because she's Australian. Seems like she can do anything. But the winner, let's get into the winner. The winner of this is Mariah May. I've given it to Mariah May, the Golden Wombat, the Rookie of the Year of 2024. In some ways, it's kind of unfair because she's the reason that she's won this is she's literally just the most high profile of all of these people. She, had that incredible heel turn at the end of the Owen Cup, and then a really good match with Tony Storm to back it up at All In. But that thing with Tony Storm, that turn was the talk of wrestling. And it's fair to say she's had an up and down run since then. But when she's in the ring with the right person, she can deliver very well. She's not at a level yet where I feel like she can really carry someone, but she is making the most of her championship run, and I think she's improving in her weak spots, such as on the mic and like her presentation. They're sort of getting it right. And she's not going to be she's probably only going to be champion for another month or so, I imagine, until Grand Slam. I suspect Toni Storm versus her is the go for Grand Slam, but who knows? Well deserved, I think, Rookie of the Year. If anyone has any thoughts on my choice, then feel free to let me know in the chat. Let's get on to the Nut Trucker of the Year. I love this award, the Nut Trucker of the Year. If you don't know what a Nut Trucker is, then I'm sorry to say. So to describe it, a Nut Trucker, they're someone who often does the tough work that's not always as acclaimed as it should be. It's not the flashy stuff. It's the stuff that gets the job done. And you need nut truckers in your organization. And they take on unglamorous, unthankful jobs, and they get it done well, with aplomb. And so my 4 nominations for Nut Trucker of the Year, firstly, Samoa Joe. I think, he basically had to re-establish the AEW Championship. I'm sure there's a few people who are putting their hands up to do that, who would have been happy to try and re-establish the AEW Championship's prestige. But still, it was a job that needed to be done, and he did it, and he did it well. He really had to carry Hook, and I think Hook has never looked better than when he was opposite Samoa Joe. And since he's not been opposite or next to Samoa Joe, he has not looked the same. So props to Samoa Joe for that. And also kind of had to carry Chris Jericho a little bit at one point. So props to Samoa Joe for that. He earns a nomination. FTR, I think these guys, they're a high-profile team, but they haven't had a glamorous year of accomplishments. When you compare to maybe their 2022 run when they're carrying around 3 belts, main eventing ROH pay-per-views, match of the year stuff. But they always keep trucking that nut forward. I think of, the thing that I can't get out of my head is they had a match with Big Bill and Brian Keith. And it was not the best match of the year, obviously. It's nowhere near the best tag match of the year. But at the same time, it just exemplified everything that I do appreciate about FTR. They always go out and give everything. They will die in the ring. They go so hard in the ring. And they had, a fantastic match with these 2 guys, Big Bill and Brian Keith, who are not the greatest in the world. They're very over and very entertaining. And Brian Keith is pretty damn good. And Big Bill is pretty damn good. But FTR, they just elevated these guys and turned this match into something that I was on the edge of my seat for. And, I also think they had a really good match with the Acclaim during the residency. The ladder match with the Bucks, of course. And then they also had that steel cage match with Garcia against House of Black earlier this year. I really like that. These guys, it's like they forgot that, Collision is the B. No one told them that Collision's the B show now. They're still acting like it's 2023 and Collision's is a 1B show, it's not a secondary show. And they, are happy to always give their all in that. So they get an award for Nut Trucker of the Year. Darby Allin, God, man, this guy is the fullback that runs back at the biggest guys on the opposition team, full pelt, and never slows down and throws his head at them. This man is an absolute psycho. The glass in Sting's retirement, he got hung upside down in Anarchy in the arena for 5 minutes or something and got drilled with super kicks while he's doing it. This man is an absolute psycho. He's always trucking nut forward. And then fourth nomination is Mark Briscoe. Does this man ever disappoint at any point? Put a microphone in front of him for a promo, backstage, whatever. There's a new, we've got these 3 guys randomly put together. I'm going to carry this just with my pure energy and my pure charisma, and I'm going to create a brand new stable out of no more than my words. And, has a ton of fun matches as well. And then go into the C2. This man is AEW C2's version of Ishii in the G1, right? This guy goes out there and he gives it everything in all of his matches. Every single one of his matches is something that you want to catch in the night. So for that reason, he is my Nut Trucker of the Year. Mark Briscoe is the winner of Nut Trucker of the Year. Congratulations to Mark Briscoe. We're going to move on. We're going to get kind of continue to ramp up the stakes, we're now looking at Debutant of the Year. So as I said, rookies, they're guys who've had like large-scale exposure. Gareth says correct decision. Thank you, Gareth. I appreciate that. Moving on to Debutant of the Year, these guys who have been in, other major promotions, WWE, New Japan, they're probably the two that I would class. There might be others that, it would be a case-by-case basis, basically. But when I read them out, you will understand. So I've got, first up, the Hurt Syndicate. Speak for themselves. They debuted at Grand Slam. MVP is immediately charismatic on the mic. They have quite a good program and compelling program with Swerve, and they've sort of really put things on notice a little bit. Bobby Lashley hasn't had a lot to do yet, but he hasn't really needed to because Shelton Benjamin's been, pretty incredible in his own right. These guys look dangerous. They look like they, could shake things up a little bit and have, a bit of an impact on the division, and their placing in there has already had an effect on some characters like, your Ricochets, your Swerve Strickland, your Max Casters, Leo Rush, I think of others as well. So their nominee, obviously, Ricochet, also came in towards the end of the year, bit up and down, people weren't writing tickets on him straight away, but I think he's finding his groove. And he has had some decent stuff, particularly in the C2. Will Ospreay, oh boy, what hasn't Will Ospreay done this year? Like him, no surprises, he is one of the nominees for Wrestler of the Year. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but talk about taking AEW by storm. Like from the second that and I know he's been in the company before, but I'm talking about as like a full-time performer coming in. It immediately has an impact, is immediately over with the crowds, is immediately cutting promos at a level that I don't think anyone really expected. And of course, the matches are incredible as well. Next one, Kazuchika Okada, similar, massive level superstar, came in about the same time as Okada. As Ospreay, and has had an impact, has held the Continental belt all years, had great matches as well, and been part of the Elite story, which is a bit hit or miss. You can count that against him, I guess, a little bit. Some people don't love his presentation. I think they've allowed him to goof around a little bit, have a bit more character. I don't know. I find myself going back and forth on it all the time, so I don't really know where I sit with that, to be honest. And then fifth, and most obviously the fifth one, is Mercedes Moné, is the other debutant. Similar to Okada, I think has been up and down a little bit, struggled to find her pace, but at the same time, like, you can't argue against some of the results. I think of the matches with Willow Nightingale, the most recent two matches with Chris Statlander, the matches some other places as well have been very good. But I think pretty obvious, I'm not going to spend too much time, the debutant of the year is Will Ospreay. Like, is there even any competition? Like, Okada and Monet have been good. Hurt Syndicate and Ricochet have not been around long enough. Will Ospreay has been out of this world this year. He is one of the best. He is definitely one of the best wrestlers in the world, and has immediately made an impact in AEW, and is one of the highlights of every single show that he's on, whether he's on the mic or in the ring. So, debutant of the year. Now, Gooba of the Year. This is a bit more of a fun one, I think. This is another fun one. So, the Gooba of the Year. There's so many in AEW in 2024. There's a lot of Goobas of the Year, I think, in AEW. So it was almost hard to narrow this down, to be honest. But we'll start off with the apples, the branches to the tree that is Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith. Pure cheese. Brian Keith has been fun. And so Big Bill particularly has been fun. There it looked like there was a moment there they were going to actually do something with him and Jericho, but I don't know, it seems like they've skimmed over that. But those guys are always fun. There are perfect examples of great goobers. Harley Cameron, I've got the photo up there of her being Harley Graham. Like, she is a pure goober, absolute delight. Always happy to stooge, always happy to make fun of herself. Like, genuinely a funny person, genuinely a humorous person, and has really fun comedic timing. And yeah, as I said, not afraid to, really make a stooge of herself. and really make a fool of herself and sell in the ring, which is great at this stage in her career. Like, she's just learning. Maybe she will be something more one day. Who knows? But right now, for where she's at in her career, absolutely amazing. Like I saw her doing like a guitar thing, the 6 days of Harley Cameron or something. Incredible. The Outcasts, of course, they're goobers. The Outrunners. They're pure goober, right? Like the pastiche and everything. The energy, it's pure cheese, and cheese and ham and everything good. Like that's they're another person. I've got Tony Khan as Goober of the Year for when he appeared with his little his neck brace. He got punked out by Jack Perry and the Young Bucks, and then he was on TV with a neck brace. He lost control of AEW for a week, looking very much like the Goober. And then we've got Luther the Butler carrying Tony Storm around and generally stooging it up for Tony Storm. And then lastly, I've got this was a short-lived thing, and thank God it was a short-lived thing, but the AEW Defense Squadron, I called them. The geeks that were standing outside of Dynamite that time where they were waiting for the Death Riders to show up, personified by John Silver with his nunchuck. Absolute goobers. So as you can see here, goober can be a positive or negative thing depending how it's applied. I think Gareth says, Big Bill. Sorry to disappoint you, Gareth. It's Harley Cameron. Jeez, man. She is pure comedy. She is pure cheese. As I said, she's never afraid to figuratively show ass in the ring, and is up for anything. I think as exemplified most by when she was doing the Harley Graham thing. She committed it so hard, talking like a robot, and then pulls it off. Not everyone else is saying, "We know it's you." Then pulls it off and acts like, "I tricked you all. It was me all along." Incredible. So I've got a few things in the chat. Dale says RJ City seems gooberish, but mostly on AEW. Yeah, true. AEW not canon, so not counted in this. Gareth says I wasn't at the Cardiff, and it shows. I wish I was at Cardiff. That was an incredible thing, and it will show when I get to the next section actually, for the promos of the year. That was a great show, the Cardiff show. But congratulations, Harley Cameron picks up the Golden Wombat, and she is one of the few people who may actually, although she might be actually too young. So the Golden Wombat is a take on a sort of remodeled version of Fatso the Fat Ass Wombat from the Roy and HG program, The Dream, which was in the 2000 Olympics here in Sydney, like a comedic late night program that these two comedians hosted. And they had Fatso the Fat Ass Wombat as the alternative mascot for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And I've sort of retooled him for this. Harley Cameron may do that, although, as I said, given that she is young, she is Australian, but given that she's young, she may well be too young to remember the 2000 Olympics. Anyway, moving on, promo of the year. If you look at this, you'll get a pretty quick idea of when I enjoyed AEW the most this year, because it all comes, except for one of them, it all comes from a pretty limited time span and a pretty straightforward, a pretty set build to a certain pay-per-view and a certain time of the year. So I'll run through the nominees for promo of the year I've got there. The first one is Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson's post-match promo at Revolution. I just thought this was, I recently recorded a match guide that will go up at the end of January, so I won't go too much into it. I did it with Joseph Montestilio, and we went in depth on the match that these two, that Eddie and Danielson had at Revolution. And the post-match afterwards, it's just so real, so wholesome, and speaks deeply about each of their characters, like who each of them are, what they value, and where they're at in their careers. So that was incredible. Danielson's go-home promo to Cardiff, Gareth. I've got that written down on my notes, but I didn't have a picture up for it anyway. So I've got I'll get into that. I've got notes on it though. So we've got Will Ospreay and MJF. They're all in go-home promo. Look, as much as this is as much a crowd thing as anything, I watched the promo again today before deciding who won. And look, the MJF stuff's okay, but it was when Will Ospreay got on. How crazy is that it's like, oh, the MJF stuff was good, but it was when Will Ospreay got on the mic that, like he gave me goosebumps when he said, what can't be written is how people feel. You've never inspired a single person to do this. You want to know who the hell I am? Go all over Europe, ask them who the best wrestler in the world is right now. They will say Ospreay. Go to Australia and New Zealand. They will say Ospreay. Go to Japan, Ospreay. Go to America. Go to your home state. They will say Ospreay. Go up and down this country. They will say Ospreay. And man, that verbiage, because I've been to shows in Australia where Ospreay has given everything for like 150 people. Like this is, and so him just saying that, like, this is what I am. I live for this. I want to inspire people, and I will do everything for this. That hair standing on end sort of stuff. And I did have Swerve versus Danielson. For whatever reason, I haven't put a picture of them up there, but like once again, like it could have been a crowd thing. Swerve, man, he did so well in this. He comes out, runs down the people he beat, like he intimidates everyone. He turns like the podcast interviews that Danielson was doing that I hated. He turns them on Danielson. He says they're like a slap in the face to him. And he says, like, no matter where you go, once I've beaten you, I'll find you and I'll be there to beat you up again. And then Danielson comes out and he finally brought the fire. Like the build to that match, man, Swerve carried it so hard. Danielson was working against it. It was for someone who is supposedly the best wrestler of all time. Some people say, at least of his generation, of the last 20 years. This man did not know how to build a program. He was like actively working against it, and it took Swerve being smart enough to spin it around to sort of make it work. But he finally brought the fire, and the crowd blew up as a result. And he's in front of my crowd. I got goosebumps watching this again too as well. In front of the crowd, in front of my peers, and in front of my family and kids. I'm going to beat you. Incredible. Lots of swearing as well, which always helps. And then we've got Hangman in the hallway from when he made his return. Just like the anger, the rage of Hangman, and then the sadness when he cuts in with I gave them 5 years and they chose him. I gave you 5 years and they chose him. And he's like, the rage and the sadness are one. Incredible promo and acting. Like, man, this man is as real as it gets, like as good as it gets when it comes to promos and feeling authentic. And you could feel the rage, you could feel the sadness, you could feel the determination and the fury, the sense of righteousness that he had in that hallway. Like it was a 2.5 minute promo. It felt like they were scared to put it on TV. And then of course, and the other Swerve and Hangman one that I've got, the All Out Go Home, where Hangman breaks into Swerve's house and burns it down. Like the verbiage in this was so well thought out. Like, so Hangman's so condescending, and he says one line. He says low ceilings, and just that one observation says so much. And it says so much about what Swerve's upbringing was like. Low ceilings. And he's saying that as an insult, as an observation. Incredible. And like you see him, and all you see is his face, and you don't see the jerry can. The first thing you do is you hear the jerry can. You hear like it splashing, and as soon as you hear that, like, oh, this man, this is crazy. And like we forget, there was obviously the home invasion in the lead up to the Texas Death Match the year before, but there was also a shot of like Swerve seeing Hangman take his pregnant wife to hospital, and like you can see the justification happening in Hangman's thing. He is completely justified in his actions here, and he says, "I wouldn't blame anyone for wondering why I'm here, but you know." And like an underrated part of this promo as well is, and this whole piece is Swerve in the ring. Like so often in these things, like the the person who's in the ring will like run backstage as if they can get there, but he knows he can't get there. And so he's just in the ring. He's watching with like rage and fury and sadness, and he's reacting in real time. Incredible, like acting, well done acting in the ring. Like could have been so easy to overdo that, but he hits the tone perfectly. And then the line like you'll be on your knees begging for mercy, but I will not give it to you. And then what happens at the end in the cage match? And then he says, "But the night is long, and it's time to say goodbyes, but not goodbyes from me, goodbyes from you." Saying like it's time for you to say goodbye to this house, and then he lights it on fire, and sits the mother of all images, which is still my phone home screen. Him sitting in front. I think at Christmas time, the TBS did a like a Yule log thing of Hangman sipping whiskey in front of the burning house. Incredible. And then the sixth nominee I've got for this, his also part of the All-In build, Mariah May turns on Toni Storm. Like, this was brutal, shocking. It created, like, no one picked it up to happen at that moment. So everyone knew that a turn was coming at some point, but no one knew who was going to turn. Most people thought Toni Storm was turned. But the time that it happened caught people off guard, and the blood and the violence caught people off guard as well. And then, of course, you have the image of Mariah May, which I've got in the screen here on YouTube and on the stream, blood dripping down Toni Storm's face and kind of Mariah May cradling her. Incredible image and like really set the world of pro wrestling discourse alight for a whole week. But given how much I talked about it, you probably won't find it too hard to guess what I selected for promo of the year. My promo of the year is Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland, the go home for All Out. Man, this was so good. Like, this isn't the kind of stuff I always want in my wrestling, but if you're going to do it well. And man, these guys just absolutely smashed it. As I said, so much went into this that was done right. The verbiage was perfect. The tone was incredible. It was disturbing. It was unsettling. And the final image was just purely iconic. And it also was the thing that he'd been setting up. Like, he speaks in that other promo I got he speaks about that other promo I nominated, how he's going to burn your world to the ground. And he had fire in his new Tron. Like, this was something that they'd thought through so well, and they absolutely nailed it for this All Out go home. The only problem is this was the end of the year for Adam Page. He hasn't shown up since, and I don't know what's going on. He's been nowhere. I don't know why he hasn't been anywhere since this match with All Out. Anyway, look, we'll get into that more probably in this next segment, because the next segment is the wet fart of the year. Boy, this was a year with some wet farts. If you can't understand what the wet fart is for, well, lucky you, because you've never done one. But also, I think you'll work it out as I go through. So, my wet fart nominations for the year. First one, Adam Cole and MJF and the Undisputed Kingdom. Of course, the Undisputed Kingdom is revealed as the Devils at World's End 2024, and then they come out early 2025, and Adam Cole is still injured, so he can't do anything. So Wardlow's going to go in his space, but only until Adam Cole can come back, and then Wardlow's going to win the World Championship and then gift it to Adam Cole. Not really sure how that's going to happen. But then Wardlow doesn't win the World Championship, then he disappears, kind of goes nowhere. Then Adam Cole disappears as well. He kind of just goes away. No one knows what's going on. And then you've got these like tag teams, and then MJF comes back and immediately destroys Adam Cole. So of course that's the end of it, right? You'd think so. No one was enjoying it at this point. Like, the story was a mess. MJF is getting booed now. He's a heel, but Adam Cole was the one that turned on him. So maybe let's just forget that it all happened. No, Adam Cole returns. I had an off-ramp to this, right? Like, oh man. And everything that has happened has happened. Like, this was an absolute abysmal failure from start to finish. And by the time we got to the worst thing about it was by the time we got to 2024, we already knew that this program was a failure, and it continued on. Let's continue on with my nominations. The second nomination, the Elite story, the Bucks' new gimmick, and the airing, particularly the airing of the CM Punk footage. This started so well. Like, the Sting program was incredible. That's one of my matches of the year. It's a consensus pick for match of the year and moment of the year. The Young Bucks, like, doing the job and doing this right for him. But then it just went completely off the rails. There's so much stuff that goes into it as well. Like, the storyline, it seemed like they were setting up this takeover of the Elite takeover, but then they took over, but Tony Khan just immediately got power back. And apparently there was like, and look, I don't know how much of this is just a rumor, but apparently Tony Khan was, and I hope I'm not the first person to say this on main, and I've like pulled it out of somewhere that I'm not meant to be explained. But anyway, look, whatever. Apparently Tony Khan didn't want people to think that the Young Bucks were in charge. He wanted people to know that he was the one that was booking the program. And so he pulled the teeth out of this story. Like, the story meant nothing. They went into these Anarchy in the Arena and Blood and Guts matches, which like ultimately meant nothing. They were just violence for violence sake because they weren't fighting for anything. Like, there was this supposed fight for the heart of AEW. What that actually meant is completely ethereal. And then, like, the Young Bucks were not on screen for regularly because they've, fair enough, they've signed per date contracts and have limited dates, and they used them all up. And yeah, like, this was a program that should have been something incredible. It started so well, but then there was the tag team tournament, which wasn't great, and particularly the Fight for AEW, which was an absolute failure of a program. Wet fart. Absolute wet fart. Learning Tree, the next wet fart. Like, man, me and Andy recently did a podcast about Chris Jericho, and thanks, Dale. I'm safe. You saw it on Reddit. Yeah, I think it was somewhere else that reported that. But so I get, like, I'm not well enough. Like, I don't have any direct sources or anything, but I know people who do have direct sources, and sometimes just through chatting to them, stuff comes out, and then I say stuff, and I don't think I've ever got anyone in trouble. In fact, I know I have never got anyone into trouble, but I live in fear of doing that because I like my friends, and I don't want them to get in trouble. So thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. The Learning Tree of Chris Jericho, man. Like, I did my most recent match guide review was about Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson. I don't think I was harsh enough on him. Chris Jericho is hanging on right now. Like, I think it was because I was focusing on him in 2022 when he was still objectively good. In 2024, he is objectively bad most of the time. He has some flash. He's a great, like, he is an all-time great professional wrestler. So he still has good nights occasionally, but more often than not, he has bad nights. He's actively he's an active negative. And the thing with the TV in AEW is they've got such a big roster that TV is a privileged position, and Chris Jericho gets it every single week, and just about every single week. And that is a spot that he is given over the top of someone else. And I think it's not that Chris Jericho, he's actively bad right now on TV, particularly given where AEW is at. And he's taking up a spot that should be given to someone who deserves more time. Like, he has had more promo time than Hangman Adam Page this year. That is a disgrace. Even when they've been around, like, if you compared time when they've both been around, he has had more promo time than Hangman Adam Page. That should not be the case. Absolutely not. Like, I'm not even talking about, ancillary stars, people that are like could have been or should have been. Like, Hangman Page is a main event level. He was the main event of the last pay-per-view. He main evented All Out. Like, this is a top star, and Chris Jericho gets more TV time than him because he's a narcissist and he will not hang it up. And for whatever reason, he's got the ear of Tony Khan and the trust of Tony Khan to go out there and shit the bed the way that he does so often. Wet fart. shit the bed, wet fart. That's And then the fourth one, they're the talk at the moment of the IWC and particularly AEW conversation, the Death Riders. Like, particularly with the end of World's End, it's a lot of the similar stuff to what's happening with the Young Bucks, like what happened with the Elite storyline. Like, it's this story that is about like this ethereal thing for AEW, and it's so much like, fight, we're going to create change, and they're actively a detraction from what's going on. It's not clear what their motive is. The initial angle was great, like the putting the bag on Danielson's head was fantastic, but there's not enough emotion and character in this. It seems like Darby Allin is getting set up to be the end point of it, but they haven't actually told his story. He just like throws himself in front of them. They've not focused on like the unique storyline that him and Jon Moxley have and the character interactions that they've had. Anyone who goes back and looks at my match guide episode where we talked about Darby Allin and Jon Moxley will know I love that. I love that relationship. Like, that is a relationship with so much depth, and it should mean so much, but it's not. Darby Allin is being a crash test dummy, and the Death Riders just keep riding over the top of him. And now it's becoming a thing against Edge, and it's becoming a thing against Edge and FTR. And it's not that Edge and FTR are bad, but it's just that we could be focusing on other things. As I said, like Hangman Page, he walked out of that all-out cage, and this is going to, like, this is a big bugbear of mine. I'm not the only one who feels that way. When they finished that all-out match, he went to go back down to the ring, and people squealed. They do not do that in wrestling anymore. People squealed because they were scared at what he would do. And he should have walked straight out of that into a match and destroyed that. Anyway, look, this is getting booked on top, and it is not a good story, the Death Riders storyline, that is. And there is so much that is just backstage. It's clear that Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson campaigned for this. Those guys are two wrestlers that I trust, and it hurts me that Jon Moxley, like, it's frustrating as a long-term fan of Jon Moxley that this is so bad, and it is at the top of AEW. It is not about where the best like, how many times this year have we had come up with new slogans like, we're the best wrestler? We're the best wrestler is probably the best one, given, what we saw in World's End and like what was good about that pay-per-view and what wasn't. And the Death Riders storyline is nothing about it. Anyway, I'm ranting now because it's top of the mind. But having said all that, my winner is Adam Cole, and the MJF storyline continues when we were begging for them to finish. And the reason that this is the wet fight of the year is because it happened multiple times, and as well as that, as well as it being bad from the get-go, we knew it was bad at the start of the year, and there were multiple times when they could have stopped it, and they chose to continue, and they chose to keep going on with it. And it has completely derailed the careers of MJF and Adam Cole. Like, these are two guys that should be right up there. Like, I've never been a massive fan of Adam Cole, right? I've always thought he is an 8 out of 10 in every single category wrestler, at best. But it's undoubtable that he is someone that people connect with and people love his catchphrases, all that. His career has been completely derailed by this. He's got go away. Like, people don't want him actively don't want him on the screen, and it's all to get this act that was at its peak in 2019 in Undisputed Era, and the Kingdom, which is from like 2016. It's to get that reunited. It hasn't worked, and it has hurt MJF as well. Like, MJF, people are having dialogue about how MJF has lost it. This is a guy who was, like the undisputable future of the company. And it's clear that when he is with other wrestlers, that he's still great. Like his program with Will Ospreay was really, really good. And he had a great match. His program with Daniel Garcia, likewise, very, very good. But this storyline has just completely derailed it. And it could have been ended at many points. And I think that is the reason why it is. Like, they've committed to the other ones with Death Riders and the Elite. They kind of committed to them, and they tried to see them through for hell or high water. It seems that's what they're doing with the Death Riders. I hope they turn it around. They could have just stopped this when people were begging them to. I don't know anyone that wanted to see them finish this. And so that's why it's the wet fart of the year. And I think the thing with the wet fart this year is when I first introduced it, I wanted it to be funny stuff. But this year, like 3 of them are hugely important angles. Like 2 of them are arguably the most important thing going on in TV at the time with the Elite and the Death Riders. And I think one of the reasons that AEW has such a stink around it right now and so much fan discontent, including for myself right now, is that the wet farts are happening at the top of the card. Like they're top line programs featuring main event level guys who should know better and should do better and should produce better. And you should take more care of your top level than what they are doing. And with this, with the Elite, with the Death Riders, it feels like they haven't. It feels like they're not listening to the crowd. It feels like the politics are being played, that people's egos are being pandered to backstage, and that is not a good place to be. But this wet fight of the year. Let's move on. We're going to get more positive, I promise, guys. Like, as I said at the start, like I love my podcast because generally we get to focus on positive things, but I'm not above a rant every now and again. So I'm gonna have a sip of my zero alcohol beer, and we'll try and move on as a group, shall we? Also, jump in the chat and tell me what you think. Dale has said he thinks Adam Cole as well. And then Gareth has said 2 months ago, I'd say there's no way the Elite failed takeover could be topped. Then came the Death Riders. Yeah. And look, the worst thing is, I promise I will get on to the next slide. The worst thing is, I love the Young Bucks. Like, I love the Elite. The Elite is what got me to AEW. Jon Moxley is my favorite wrestler of all time. Like, putting these guys in this category is not good. Like, it says a lot about where things are at. Anyway, let's move on. Tag team of the year. We've got the Young Bucks. This is a weird category this year. The Young Bucks, FTR, Private Party, and the Outrunners. Like, honestly, I could not. It's really hard to pick 4 tag teams that should be nominated for Tag Team of the Year, right? And like, each one makes their own case, of course. Like, that's crazy. I've just spent ages burying the big storyline that the Young Bucks was in, but at the same time, like, who's had better matches than them? Not many people. FTR, as I said, like, they haven't had a high-profile year. It's largely been unglamorous, but they've done some good work when they've had to. Private Party have been non-existent most of the year, but then sort of came out of nowhere with have a program with the Young Bucks, which was excellent, and then had some good stuff afterwards. And then the Outrunners, it's just like I kind of put them in there because they're really hot. They haven't had matches that I've been super into at all, and they're mostly just over on the strength of their presentation, which is good. But man, this is the most weird category, and the Young Bucks have won it, the Tag Team of the Year, and I don't really know how you could argue against it. Like, they've had all of the best matches for a tag when it comes to tag team wrestling this year. Like, had the Sting match, Yannick in the arena, match against Private Party. Man, it's a weird one. Like, they're nearly the best and the worst tag team of the year. Which is a crazy way for them to be. But shout outs to the Young Bucks, right? Like, they came on Tunnel Talk this year. They came on Social Suplex, and that's pretty awesome. And they're going to be in New Japan at Wrestle Dynasty, and I'm excited about that. I'm always excited when I see them in the ring because these are guys that they are wrestling savants. And I bet they know that they screwed up with their program. I bet that on self-reflection, I bet that they know that what they're doing stunk. And hopefully that means that in 2025, they'll be back with a vengeance, ready to light up the world again. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat. So Dale says, oh gosh, I don't see how Private Party wins, even with the title. Gareth says, Young Bucks have been actively and intentionally bad and still the best. TK sort the division out. Yeah. It was interesting in that interview with Tunnel Talk. I know there's like it's mostly the bad faith people, right, that go, the Young Bucks are in charge of the tag team, the tag division, and the tag division sucks, so the Young Bucks need to take responsibility for that. And it was like very clear when they were talking to Tunnel Talk, and they're like, oh yeah, the people that we wanted to drop it to changed 4 times. So it's clear they're not in charge of what's going on there. They're just part of it. I think that EVP title is name only. It's probably, my theory is honestly, and this is purely based on my own speculation, is that it is so they can get they can be employees of the company and get health insurance benefits, probably, because given how fucked up the American healthcare system is for wrestlers, that would be a big thing to be able to negotiate, and it gives them that. Just like I think Chris Jericho's got it, Sam Punk had it back in the day. There's probably others as well, John Moxley maybe, Bryan Danielson. Anyway, let's continue on. Female Wrestler of the Year. This is a really tight one, right? Like, I feel like there's 4 standout candidates, right, for Women's Wrestler of the Year. First, you've got Mercedes Moné. I'm just going to list them down. Like Mercedes Moné, Toni Storm, Willow Nightingale, Mariah May, and Chris Statlander. And all of them have got pros and cons, right? Like, I don't think there's one that is purely positive. Like, it's purely 100% positive. And it's not clear which one stands out completely. Like, if you were to pick any, I pretty much think any of these, probably 4 out of 5 of these are right answers. So like Mercedes Moné obviously comes into massive fanfare. As I said, when I was talking about her as a debutante, has had ups and downs. You know, hasn't been that strong on the mic, but in the ring at times has been incredible. And, you know, at times very good, rarely absolutely poor. Toni Storm had probably like the most high profile storyline and the most well-received storyline, has recently done her re-debut, which has been rapturously received by the AEW public and the AEW fans. Willow Nightingale is kind of like Mrs. Fix-It in the division. Like, she kind of just gets thrown in everywhere, but it's because she's just so over and the crowd loves her so much. Mariah May, you know, was the other part of that storyline, which if you're going to do like female wrestling storyline of the year, which is if there was going to be let's just say this, if there's going to be like a female entrant into storyline of the year, it would be the Toni Mariah one. So it's undeniable. Like, that's why one of the reasons that Mariah May gets the nomination there, because she was a big part of that, big part of making the angle happen. And as I said, she's had a pretty good title reign, I'd be comfortable saying, like up and down a little bit. Has had good matches and bad matches, good matches with good opponents, I'd say. And then Chris Statlander, like, as well, creative, nuts, real actively bad, actually, in that it's like, you know, the way that it kind of swung around after she did her heel turn. But at the same time, like, the matches with Mercedes Moné are some of the best. They're the best matches Mercedes had, I think. And they are like some of the best matches that happened all year. And of course, the match with Willow Nightingale is probably the best female match of the year, like, at least for me. So, you know, she has to get a nomination. So Dale says Mariah more recently has been pack leader, but for all of 2024, I think Toni Storm changed the division for the better. That's a fair assessment. I'd take that. But for me, my wrestler of the year for 2024 is female wrestler of the year is Willow Nightingale. As I said, she's kind of like the Mrs. Fix-It almost. You know, like, she just gets plugged into all these different places. You know, when Steph McClure left CMLL, who'd they call? They called Willow Nightingale. It was crazy that she went there, and that they just kind of plugged her in. I think she won their championship at one point, actually, even. And, you know, her match with Chris Statlander, as I said, like, that's my women's wrestling match of the year for AEW. I don't have that as a category, but if it was, that would be the answer. And, you know, she had really good matches. She was probably one of Mariah May's best opponents. She had 2 matches with her that were very good. She had a really good match with Mercedes, and I hope they're setting her up to be ultimately the one that dethrones Mercedes. There could be a number of options. Like, I know people have said Athena as well. But, you know, I thought the Willow sort of feud was really good, and even had a very fun match with Sky Blue, like a very fun hardcore match with Sky Blue, and no one brings the division alight like the way Willow Nightingale does. I'd say Toni Storm kind of has her own presence in her own way, like it's a different sort of charisma and presence. But I just every time Willow hits the ring, people light up, people clap, people are excited to see her, and that continued in AEW in 2024. So she wins my Female Wrestler of the Year as kind of mostly like an all-round award. She had the least negative points against her, I guess, compared to the other ones in there. But look, as I said, you pick Tony, you pick Mercedes, you pick Chris, you've got good arguments for each one of them. So I think it was a very hotly contested sort of competition there. Let's continue along to Male Wrestler of the Year. Talk about hotly contested awards. Man, this is tough. I've got 4 nominees. We'll run through them. I'll name them all and then we'll run through them. It's kind of obvious 3 stand out, and I've kind of chucked one on there just for pure quality of work and probably because he's one of my special boys. So Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay, and Hangman Adam Page. 3 of those guys I think are in like a death struggle for who's going to do it, and all of them have had absolutely incredible years. Like there is you have to split hairs really to split them, and up until like literally until today I was considering and reconsidering my things. Anyone who follows me on social media on Twitter will know that I was contemplating changing who I was going to award it to, because of the strength of performance at World's End. So Bryan Danielson, let's kind of run through each of them. Bryan Danielson, got one person saying there's only one answer here. Who is it? Tell me who you think the one answer is, because I think there's 3 answers that are all pretty right, and you can make a pretty compelling case for. Like Bryan Danielson, he had started out the year in that feud with Eddie, and also had matches with Hechicero at that point. Did stuff with the Mexican wrestlers, which was very exciting. Then had the program with Ospreay, and this will be another thing, is a lot of them is overlapping. Had the program with Ospreay, and then had the program with Swerve, and then did the stuff with Jon Moxley, which I thought was very strong until at that point. So that doesn't really count against him. And of course, the main event at All In, which of course will feature in everyone's wrestler match of the year talk, as will the match with Ospreay, as will like the match with there's a lot of overlap here. And then Swerve Strickland, you've got like for him, it's almost like all-round performance. He didn't have as many great matches, but I don't know. For me, I would argue he has like the most high points, particularly like the stretch between Forbidden Door, All In, All Out, where he was champion and just like in the form of his life, just running so hot. It was so good in every single way, like in every minute detail of his presentation, in ring, on promo, on the mic, in interviews, in like going into Bob and Jerry's morning TV show. He just was so dialed in at that point. Will Ospreay, I kind of went over in Debutant of the Year. He has just been an absolute machine this whole year, having his matches with Danielson, his match with Swerve. Then he's added a string to his bow with his promo stuff. And then it was the program with Fletcher, which I think no one really saw coming was going to be so great. And then it was incredible. And then the C2, which, of course, we should all be ready for because we've known what he's like in G1s. And then the performance at World's End, which was like just back-to-back matches that were at such a high level and telling such a good story. And then I've put we've said Ospreay. Gareth says, I'll still go Danielson. He had Ospreay and Swerve's best matches, but it's close to Ospreay after World's End. And then my 4th one, Hangman Adam Page. As I said, like strength of performance at his peak. Like the start of the year, it's easy to forget. The start of the year, him and Swerve had some really great back and forth as well around that. When they had the rankings, they had that draw, and then they were part of the triple threat with Samoa Joe, which I thought was very good. and that was largely centered around them. They had a lot of great interactions. And then, him and Swerve just carried the blood and guts match and were just so compelling in every single interaction they had. And, Hangman also had great matches with Danielson, great matches with Darby, and Ospreay also had great matches with Darby. There's a lot of crossover here, right? And then, of course, it all peaking with the All Out for Hangman. And, it has been sort of limited return since then. And, some people aren't in love with what he's doing as a character. Some people have suggested he's even, a bit checked out as a character. And, not, he's just sort of punching the clock. And, in some ways I don't blame him, given the strength of his performance at one point. And then it was like, oh no, we're very happy with what you've done now. Here's your program with Jeff Jarrett, and you can lose to Jay White. Anyway, look, it's male wrestler of the year. As I said, I think the Danielson, Swerve, and Ospreay are all correct in their own way. But for me, the Golden Wombat goes to Swerve Strickland. For me, the reason that I've gone with Swerve over the other guys is the entire presentation. And Will Ospreay came so close. Firstly, I'll tell you why I didn't pick Danielson. I didn't think he held up his side of things in a number of programs that were very important, particularly the build to All In. Prior to that Go Home program, I thought the way he was treating it actively detracted from the presentation of it, and Swerve completely carried it up until that point. Now that changed once they get in the ring and once they do the Go Home, and I love that match so much. It will feature in I'm going to do the top 10 matches in a tick, and it will feature in that. And I also didn't like the stuff around him, the title after All In and after All Out, it's strangled by Moxley, and then there was the stuff to get him to have a match with Nigel, and then they kind of screwed over Darby a little bit in that, and it was very hit or miss, and he wasn't on TV all the time, and then the match with Moxley happens, and that was not strong. And as I said, we're splitting hairs here. This is an incredibly tough one. And I think even though in the ring nailed it every single time this year, Bryan Danielson, because of that, sorry, can't be my wrestler of the year. So then it came down to Swerve and Ospreay, and man, it was close. And I think I went with Swerve because of the All In, the way he carried the All In and All Out. That trio of Forbidden Door, All In, All Out, that is the peak of my fandom this year. You looked at the promos that I had, they're all in that span, except for one of them. They were all in that span. That was the peak of my fandom of AEW. And of course, Will Ospreay was a part this year. And of course, Will Ospreay was a part of that. But the biggest part of it was Swerve Strickland, who was inch perfect in every single part of his presentation, particularly in that moment. Of course, he didn't have as strong of a back of the year, and my God, Will Ospreay came close, particularly with how good he was at World's End. I was thinking about this so hard, and yeah, look, it was mighty close, and so I had Gareth says the Jack Perry stuff. I forgot about the Jack Perry stuff, Gareth, but that's another reason Danielson doesn't win. Yeah, as I said, it was mighty close. But I've gone with Swerve Strickland because I thought he was undeniable in those moments. Will Ospreay, a hair's breadth off. Most people are going Will Ospreay, it feels like. And I don't blame them. He's also been incredibly strong. Moving along, we have got the match of the year. Before we get to match of the year, though, I'm just going to switch to my camera, and hopefully it doesn't crash everything. I wanted to plug the Chop Tees AEW merch line. So I am wearing right now the Match Guide shirt. I think it's a really nice shirt. It's got the logo for the Match Guide on the front. Of course, this is a tribute to the EVPs. The logo we've got the sunglasses for Kenny Omega in the green. We've got the Young Bucks in the Lakers colors. And then we've got Cody's cigar over here. And then on the back, you've got the top 50 matches of AEW's first 5 years, as voted on by actually some of the people that are in the chat right now. So this is my shirt. You can get it at choptees.com/social suplex. I think it looks really good, and it would be a great way to support the network. But there's also other Social Suplex merch on there that is all done to be like, give a bit of color and be different to standard wrestling merch. Like most wrestling shirts are a black shirt, the logo on it. We wanted to do more than that, and thankfully Chop Tees allowed us to do that. Like Imp's Wrestling Adventures. He's British. He's got a tea mug. Tunnel Talk. They've got the drink container. They've got the Snuggies. One Nation Radio. They've got the Dream Team style shirts. That it's all fantastic. Go on, check it out. Chop Tees. It's a great site. They do merch for other people like Post Wrestling, WrestleNomics, Grapple, guys that I really respect. Poison Rana, others as well. Go on there, check it out, and first order there is eligible for 10% off. There's no tax at checkout and ships globally. Like, if you aren't from Americans, you do not know how good you've got it with Pro Wrestling Tees. Anyone who lives internationally, buying shirts for wrestling is ridiculous. The postage costs as much as the shirt, if not more. And so Chop Tees just wrapping it all up in one thing. I think it's really well done. And it's a great merch store that supports a lot of podcasts. If you like the AEW Match Guide, if you want to support us, if you want to give me a Christmas bonus, go in and buy a shirt. You can also, if you do want to do that, while we're on that subject, if you do want to, you can donate as well through Red Circle. If you're listening to the podcast, on every Red Circle podcast description, there's a way you can donate. If not, if you're listening on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com. You can go to, if you're on YouTube, you can go to redcircle.com and you can go find the AEW Match Guide. You can make a one-off donation or sign up for monthly donations if you want to continue to support me monthly. Or you can support the whole network if you just go to the Social Suplex part and donate to the Social Suplex feed. Totally up to you. And look, if you don't have the money to do that, totally understand. But if you like the podcast and you want to support it, that's the way you can do it. Another thing, if you're Australian and you're going to Grand Slam, if I see you wearing my shirt, I will buy you a beer. That is my promise to you. I don't make that much off these shirts. Like, I really don't make a lot. If I see you wearing my shirt, I'll buy you a beer, and that pretty much will mean that I am spending whatever my cut is on it. Beers are pretty expensive now, guys. But if I see you wearing my shirt at AEW Grand Slam, because I'll be there, I've got, spending absurd amounts of money to go to this show that AEW doesn't even promote anymore. But I'll be there. I'll buy you a beer if you're wearing my shirt. There you go. That's my thing. Come get a free beer if you buy a shirt. Anyway, let's get back to the Golden Wombats match of the year. So I've got a number of honorable mentions here. I'll go through them pretty quick because we could take all night where, I'm not going to be doing a match guide breakdown of each of these. We've got, so firstly, Ospreay, Takeshita. What a way for Ospreay to sort of debut in. This was everything that we expect from Will Ospreay. Exciting, physical, fast-paced, but also a really well-built match in terms of like the pacing of it and the way they built to a climax was fantastic. And Takeshita is incredible as well. Like you talk about underused and underrated wrestlers. Man, he has to be right up there. Ospreay versus Fletcher. I originally made this before World's End, so this is their first match. Could be their second match equally. This program kind of came out of nothing. And Kyle Fletcher, man, talk about a man who's made some strides. That guy has set himself up in the strength of the work that he did in the last 6 months. Like, he has set himself up for a big money contract. You know how MJF used to talk about the bidding war? This man is going to have a bidding war. He has got the height of a WWE guy. He is taller than Cody. He's like only a little bit shorter than Drew McIntyre. He is a big boy, and he is young. He is in his mid-20s. WWE does not have wrestlers like this in their stocks. They don't have guys who are like, you could plug them in and build them today as a main eventer. And that they would immediately fit in. He's going to have a bidding war, largely off the back of this program he's had with Ospreay. Next up, we've got the Private Party and the Young Bucks. As I said, this was peak Young Bucks, right? Like, this was exciting, fast-paced, just had an ending that makes you second guess and third guess and fourth guess and second guess every single time. Incredible tag team match. And, it paid off something that was set up a long time ago, and I think most of us thought would never get paid off in terms of, like, Private Party. And, Private Party, they're probably not going to be the team that we thought they might be when they first showed up. And part of that was probably because we're all really high on the optimism when AEW first started, and willing to overlook just about everything. So we thought these guys were going to be the next Young Bucks. They're not the next Young Bucks, but they're still able to have a fantastic match with the Young Bucks, and they sort of paid that off. And now they've got this title run. I'm not sure if they'll ever. This might be the peak of their career for Private Party. Who knows? They're still relatively young, I guess. Like, they've still got plenty of time left in their career, so who knows what they're going to do. But this was a very fun match that paid off a story that many of us would never be squared. I didn't put Chris Statlander and Mercedes in this. I should have, on reflection. Instead, the other women's match I put in was one that hasn't got enough chat, I don't think. Like, Diamante versus Thunder Rosa, their Texas Bull Rope match. This was an awesome match, man. Like, Thunder Rosa in Plunder matches, people kind of rag on her, say Plunder Rosa, but they're really fun matches, man. both of these guys, their whole series of matches was really, really good. And did I say Diamante? I meant Deonna Purrazzo. God. Sorry. Deonna Purrazzo versus Thunder Rosa, Texas Bull Rope. And this was like the climax of it all. Both of them juice, very hard hitting, very bloody, lots of fire from both of them, lots of heart. The kind of thing that fires you up as a wrestling fan when you watch it. Great match. And not enough people. I think I probably put it on there instead of the Chris and Mercedes ones because I don't think enough people are talking about it when I feel like they should be. Hangman versus Swerve, their match from the start of the year, their draw, really cool match. Kind of Hangman starting to lean heel, and you just saw glimpses of that character kind of starting to reveal itself and his motives and how they've changed and are not so what would you call honorable anymore, sort of showing through in the way that this match happened. And because it's the start of the year, and because so much happened in the year for both characters, it's largely been forgotten, but I remember. I chucked Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson on there because I think this was incredible, this match. I know it was in New Japan, but I wanted to talk about it briefly and just highlight it because I thought it was amazing. Like, I generally don't like the Zack Sabre Jr. style. Like, you talk about Jonathan Gresham. I could not care less about that man and how he wrestles. It just looks like these guys are floating. There's, very limited pressure. These guys look like they were trying to push each other's shoulder joints out and bend each other's elbows until they snapped. Like, they were putting so much torque into it, or maybe they weren't, but they looked like they were putting so much torque into it. And, they slowly got more and more aggressive with each other as this match wore on. This match was incredible for, the style that it is. It's not a style I normally love, but I saw this and I was like, wow, this is amazing for how much they're wrenching on each other, and then how it devolves eventually into a strike fest, and how, the pride of each wrestler shows through. Great stuff. I know it wasn't AEW, but, Danielson, yeah, whatever. And the last one I put in was, for my honorable mentions, was Garcia versus House of Black. This match cost Garcia and FTR versus House of Black. This match got a lot of flack because of the way the stipulation sort of got funny and, all the sort of weird stuff around Malachi Black, which is really probably his own fault, more than anything else. That bloke can't help himself sometimes. In many ways, I feel like he needs to get out of his own road. But that said, sometimes when these guys get in the ring, they are incredible. They are undeniable. The sense of menace they have And the way that they are able to portray and the body language that they have is the control they have over their body language, I should say, is really, really impressive and something I really appreciate. And in this match, it was on full display. You've got FTR just throwing themselves around there. Cash Wheeler in particular, that man is an absolute psychopath. No regard for his own body. And Daniel Garcia, oh man, the last stretch of this, where he is one-on-one in the cage with Malachi Black, is so good. And I don't know, people didn't seem to get on board with it at the time. But to me, this was like such a good follow-up from Daniel Garcia finally getting a win in the Continental Classic, but it being over Brody King. And this was, the way that this program sort of spiraled out of it was really cool. And FTR as well being involved with Daniel Garcia. I kind of like that pairing. I know that traditionally Garcia is with Matt Menard 2.0, but 2.0 aren't around at the moment. Matt Menard's a commentator more than anything else, and a very good one, I might add. And, socially, I think he gets along really well with the Private Party Boys. I saw a vlog of those guys, hanging out in Paris. But character-wise, he makes sense around FTR. And it kind of works, them being like, we're these grizzled, hard technicians. We'll take you under our wings, son, and teach you our ways. Kind of makes sense. So, I wouldn't be against more of that combination going forward. Before I get into my top 10, they're my honorable mentions. Before I get into my top 10, Gareth says in the chat, I love how Hangman confirmed his heel turn at Revolution by attacking the ref exactly 4 years after refusing to go to the dark path by refusing to turn on Omega. Yeah, that's a good point. And he sort of showed it at the end of this match where he was happy to take the tie and he was just like, sucked in, Swerve. You don't get it. So I don't care. I didn't really want to win anyway. And how outraged he was at, his supposed miscarriage of justice when you knew that he sort of done the dirty. It was like that early heel turn from Hangman because of the strength of his performance after he came back. I think it gets a bit lost how good that little stretch was after Revolution. After World's End and leading up to Revolution. But my top 10. There was a lot of really good matches this year, though. I've probably missed some. As I said, I probably should have had Chris and Mercedes in my honorable mentions, but so be it. Here we go. Top 10. I thought a lot about this, actually. Oh! Uh-oh. I've realized I have the wrong presentation. Uh-oh. Okay. Give me a second.
What is... Dax, are you?
Tracking all our cars on Carvana Value Tracker on all our devices? Yes, Kristen, yes I am.
Well, I've been looking for my phone for...
In Dax's domain, we see all. So we always know what our cars are worth.
All of them?
All of them. Value surge, trucks up 3.9%.
That's a great offer.
I know. Sell?
Sell.
Track your car's value with Carvana Value Tracker today.
I'll need to edit this part out of the podcast. Okay, let's see what I can do to salvage this. I had an older version of this that I did pre. I had an older version of this that I did pre World's End, and then it changed when World's End happened. And now I wonder if I did not upload the correct one. Yes, okay. I think I can save this, guys. You're just going to have to bear with me. Let's vamp for a bit. Tell me, actually, jump in the chat. Tell me what you think your favorite one was, what your favorite match of the year was, and who you think mine will be. I'm curious who you think mine will be. Those of you particularly who know my tastes. In fact, I think some of you I may have even talked to about this, so you may already know who it is. But let me know what your favorite match of the year was. I'm curious who you've got, and Gosh, that's a live show no there, isn't it? Gosh, what a stinker by me. I apologize to good folk out there who are listening live. I appreciate you all coming with me. I really do. It's fun to have you. It's fun to chat with you here. I apologize if my webcam is stuffing up. As I said before, my technology and the internet is not the greatest. And you know, we're doing what we can. We're sort of going with what we've got. And I'm hoping that this presentation that I'm uploading currently actually works and is the one that I want. In case you didn't recognize here, I'm kind of sweating bullets. I apologize that this has sort of gone on. I'm curious what you guys think, though. Firstly, what your match of the year was. Secondly, now you know I've had this little technical snafu. What you think the match was that caused this to happen, that I've had to insert into my presentation. Okay, so it's saying it's having trouble connecting. Okay, look, we're just going to have to roll with it. Those of you who are live, I'm sorry. The presentation on the screen is not going to be perfect. Dale M says Darby had some bangers in the C2. He absolutely indeed did. So, pretend that says number 10, Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher. So I love this. This match was like perfect tournament wrestling. So you'll see my number 10 originally was Garcia and FTR versus House of Black. That no longer is in the top 10. Pretend this is number 10, Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher. This was like perfect tournament wrestling for me. You had like Mark just desperate to hit the kill shot with the J Driller, and then Kyle like getting into deep waters and then like desperately wanting to get the win. He never wanted to be in those deep waters, but Hassan says Ospreay versus Takeshita was my favorite match of the year. Look, I'm not going to disagree with you. That was an incredible match, buddy. It was fantastic. But anyway, look, this one, as I said, like Kyle Fletcher in waters he just did not want to be in, desperate to get out of them. Briscoe desperately trying to hit that kill shot. So much drama, and then they announced the 1 minute to go. I still think they should be announcing 5-minute calls in every single match. So when they get towards the end, it's not so telegraphed, but they call the 1 minute. Crowd's going wild. I was spoiled on the end of this. I was spoiled on who won, and I still was like so sucked into it. This is tournament wrestling at its best. And you know, Mark Briscoe, as I said, like he's the Tomohiro Ishii. He's going to be, if he's in it next year, it will like pretty much be official. This guy, he is the man that you want to watch in the C2. The blue Dale M, the blue Thunderbomb is seared into my brain. Yeah, incredible. Like Kyle Fletcher just desperately wanting to get out. Cool. Continuing on. Pretend that says number 9. Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin. For many years, like those of us who had watched New Japan, those of us who became fans of AEW, and particularly when they actually went into partnership, wanted to see like, oh man, Darby Allin should go and wrestle Hiromu or go and do a best of Super Juniors. I think this is probably the best we're ever going to get. I don't know if he ever will go and do that. But this is so fast paced, like the counters, the speed of it, the swiftness, so slick, and the crowd like just so into it. This was, once again, like tournament wrestling. I don't know why we have things like the Death Riders when we can be doing this sort of stuff. Like, why don't we just present wrestling as a legit sport and treat it that way? And particularly at the top of the card, man, like this was so good. And just so easy to get lost in and so exciting. And it still wasn't like, it wasn't like they were not selling anything. It wasn't, like the sort of the stereotype shit indie sort of thing where, it's just a ballet display. Like you still feel, and that's one of the special things about Darby Allin. You always feel the struggle, and feel the weight of things. This was number 9, Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin. Number 8, Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson from Revolution. As I said, I'll be covering that at the end of January, at the end of this month, with Joseph Montesilio, so I don't want to go into too much depth. But there's just so much heart, so much fight in the match. Tells like such a great story of like Eddie overcoming himself, overcoming his inner doubts, and then being able to overcome and grit through Danielson's assault on his striking as a result. Like Danielson goes so hard at Eddie's arm to cut off his striking, because the reason that he lost the semi-final to Eddie was because of the striking. And so he just targets Eddie's hand. But Eddie is able to grit through it and push through it and fire up and get the win with the powerbomb, because he's added more and more things. And then that, like, it really goes through, it really, like, flips Danielson's perception of Eddie. And as Danielson says in that post-match promo, like, I had to reassess my thoughts on you, because I realized that you have done the work that I thought you hadn't done. I should have given you the respect that you deserved long ago. And you can kind of see that in Danielson's frustration in the match with not being able to shut down Eddie, despite the fact that he's cut off his striking. You know, Danielson goes into it thinking, you beat me once, but that was a fluke. So fantastic. For more on that, as I said, 31st, I'll double check the date that it goes out. 29th of January, it'll be going out. Myself and Joseph Montecillo. For those of you who don't know Joseph, the YouTube series Walking the King's Road, incredible YouTube series. He's also a really good writer, well-known member of the sort of the diehard wrestling intelligentsia, and someone who's extensively followed Eddie and Danielson's career. So look out for that one. Continuing on, number 7, pretend that says number 7, Chris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale. This was such a cool match. The match that it reminded me of most when I watched it was Edge versus Mick Foley from WrestleMania 20, when they had that hardcore match that was WrestleMania 21. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting which one it was. We all know the match I'm talking about, right? Where from the get-go, they're just dropping bombs. They don't have a lot of time. They're on a big card with a lot going on it. And so their modus operandi is they just, like, drop bombs from the get-go and escalate. And this match did just that. It was, we could see from the screenshot there that I've got on there, it's Willow Night, for those of you who are on the podcast, it's Willow Nightingale smashing light tubes over Chris Statlander's head. Like, this match was bloody and brutal on a night where there were a number of brutal matches, namingly at least Swerve Strickland and Adam Page. But they still managed to carve out their own little niche, present something that was unique on the night because of the speed that they went at it with. And also the level of violence still felt high, despite there being other really violent matches on the card. As I said, reminded me of Edge versus Mick Foley from WrestleMania, and that's a really high compliment from me. Like, in the late 2000s when I got into wrestling and started digging back in, those two guys were like two of my favorite wrestlers. I still think both of them are wrestling geniuses in their own way, even if I've got my own thoughts about Edge's Adam Copeland in AEW, and whether how they should be pushing him, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it on 1,000 different podcasts. But me comparing it to that match, what I'm trying to say, me comparing it to that match is high praise. And that was my 7th favorite match of the year. We're then going to go to my 6th favorite match of the year, which I don't have a slide for because of the snafu that I said. But it's Will Ospreay versus Kazuchika Okada from World's End. So the final match of the C2. And this was like the closest thing to a G1 final that we've had in AEW. It was slow pace. So to set the scene, like, you have to go back to the Will Ospreay match, right? Like, Will Ospreay gets bloodied in the match with Kyle Fletcher. And he manages to overcome this personal rivalry that he's got. But he's beaten, bloodied, and then he has that backstage promo where you can see, like, he's not all right, but he's fired up. And when he gets in the camera and he's like, let's fucking go, bruv. So good. Then he stumbles out to the ring and you're like, oh, you've beaten Okada twice, and both times you beat him, you had to use like interference and shit. Like you needed to use shenanigans. You think the night's going to be the night. And at times you may have thought it was going to be because the way that these guys went, like, I mean, it's Okada and Ospreay, right? Like, this is two of the greatest wrestlers of this era, if not ever. And their partnership, they've had 10 matches. Like, they know each other back to front. Ospreay was, like, under the Okada learning tree in New Japan at times. And the way they paced this match and built this match, the way they brought it to a crescendo, absolutely incredible. It knocked the socks off of everything that came before it that night, knocked the socks off the main event. And then, of course, it climaxes with the return of, Okada winning because, like, of course Ospreay can't win. Like, he can't win tonight when he's being busted. Like, he has to have a perfect night to beat Okada clean, right? And you can't have a perfect night when what's happened has happened. But he still fights with everything he has, and he's got so much adrenaline and so much fire. But Okada's just too good. Okada's Okada. Like, he does to Ospreay, puts him away, manages to put him away. But, like, the sequence, the counters at the end is just scintillating and has your heart in your mouth because you don't know which way it's going to go. And then, of course, it all crescendos with the return of Kenny Omega. Just an incredible match. And I wish I had a slide for it there. The top 5 is all the same. So we're on track now. Number 5, Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks. My enduring memory of this is the way that the blood kind of just bloomed out of Darby Allin after he went through that glass. Man, you talk about real glass, like, far out. Darby Allin may well have died in the ring that night. And, like, I don't think any of us would have been super surprised given what happened to him when he went through that pane of glass. He nearly died for Sting's retirement. But beyond that, like, the whole presentation, right? I wasn't a Sting fan at all, ever. I didn't watch wrestling in the 90s. I came to wrestling in 2008, WWE. I dipped in and out of TNA, but never watched anything huge. My only real experience with Sting was him in the WWE in the 2010s, which I don't think was as bad as everyone says it was, but, like, it certainly wasn't amazing. Like, I knew he was great, but I didn't know how great he had been. Like, I wasn't part of that. I wasn't emotionally attached to him at all. But the presentation around this was just second to none. Like, him sitting in a cinema and watching the history of his career and then walking out with his sons, who I've got in the picture, dressed up as him in different eras. Like, it was impossible not to get, like, swept up in the emotion of it all. And then, of course, as I said, like, Darby Allin nearly kills himself. The Young Bucks doing everything they can to make Sting look incredible on his last night. Ultimately putting him over, giving him a happy ending at the end, which, like, for someone who's had as much tragedy in his career as Sting, like, I think it's a nice thing. You don't want every wrestler to go out on top, I don't think. But for someone with Sting whose legacy was, like, so held down, like, WCW collapsed. He was like the last guy that refused to take the Fed money. And then when he thought that there would be never any option, he took the Fed money. And fair play to him. Like, he held out long enough, take that check, whatever. But then when there is another option, as soon as he can, he jumps at it and played his part so well in AEW and was rewarded with a happy ending. I think it was very fitting. People loved it. They drew a massive house. Like, I think that's their second biggest American show to this date, behind the first Grand Slam. So, like, obviously there was lots of people into it, and this match was, it was the perfect ending for him. The only thing that wasn't perfect was that they didn't catch the last promo. Like, his final words were, I think they're going off the air, and then cut there else. You could have just like you paid for Seek and Destroy. You paid for the final countdown. How many times, Tony Khan? Surely you can pay for an extra 10 minutes of pay per view so Sting can get his final promo in. Oh, mate. Anyway, let's continue. Number 4, Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson. Like, if you had this as your top match of the year, I cannot fault you, honestly. This was such a hot crowd, the physicality in it, and like the ending. I think that's what everyone remembers, right? Like, that's the thing that we all remember. Just the two guys rising up in the corner and just baying to ready to run at each other, and just Will Ospreay is quicker on the draw than Danielson, hits it, and ultimately gets the win. The only points I had off for this, and the reason that it slipped down to 4th for me, as opposed to my top 3, particularly, this was very close to getting 3rd, but the reason it slipped down for me was the histrionics around the Tiger Driver. I didn't love them. I didn't think they were particularly well done in this match. But apart from that, that's like minor quibbles with a match that was phenomenal. A match that, we wondered if we would ever get. And when we got it, it was as good as we could have ever hoped for. Absolutely nearly a flawless performance by both men. And everything they could have asked for. And the crowd was so into it as well. Super hot crowd. So Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson, number 4 for me, which gives us to number 3. I'm curious what you think. You can probably guess what my top 3 is, but I'm curious if you know what order it's in. Like what you think my number. Yeah. Anyway, look, let's continue. I'm curious what you guys think. I don't know. Maybe I think I don't know. You want to try and get into my mind and think about the convoluted ways. Given the way I've talked about and who I gave my wrestlers of the year to, and what I talked about with giving Swerve wrestler of the year, it's no surprise what my top 3 matches will be. So number 3, it's the trio of matches from Swerve Strickland, which I just thought so highly of. Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay from Forbidden Door. Like these two, if these two were the two guys that headline AEW for the next 5 years, mate, happy days. I'm a happy camper. The way that Swerve made this personal was awesome. The way that he refused to just have an exhibition match, as Will Ospreay might say in his English accent. We'll just have an exhibition, lad. We'll just show our sporting best. But Swerve was like, "Nah, mate, I'm gonna make it personal. I'm gonna name your wife. I'm gonna name your son. I'm gonna beat you, and I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be your son's daddy afterwards." I love how Swerve just injected that sense of menace and sense of conflict into every single thing he did, even when he was a face. Everything was personal, he's the guy that. So there's this famous Australian cricketer, Steve Waugh. I actually said Swerve Waugh. Steve Waugh. And he talked about how sometimes he would go out on the field, and if he wasn't feeling it when he was batting, he would pick a fight. Like he would start sledging someone to fire himself up. That's kind of like Swerve. Like he wants to feel personally angry, and he wants to feel like he's been personally insulted. So he makes it personal. He turns it into a dogfight because that's what he wants to get into. And then, but at the same time as that, which is probably the thing when I was splitting hairs between this and Ospreay and Danielson, the build, number 1, so I like the build more, and number 2, it had it had the athleticism of the Danielson match. You've got when Ospreay goes for the hidden blade, flying hidden blade, and instead Swerve hits with a house call midair. Awesome, amazing, eye-popping visuals of spectacular athletic feats. And Swerve just looked like an absolute killer when he finally assassinated Ospreay at the end of this. Had Ospreay dead to rights, and he just puts him out. Loved it. So that was number 3, Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay. Number 2, Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page. This match, it's so interesting to compare it to the Texas Death Match they had, and I did. So myself and Lyric, one of my favorite episodes of the podcast I did this year was with Lyric Swinton, and we looked back at the Texas Death Match that Swerve and Hangman Page had, and we did it very shortly after this match. We intentionally left it until after this match to record the podcast because we wanted to see what they did, and it was so interesting how like that was the Texas Death Match. They like sprinted at each other. Hangman Page like sprinted to the ring and could not get his hands on Swerve Strickland quickly enough. But in this match, it was totally different. He like walked down to the ring so slowly because he knew he was going to be locked in a cage with this guy, and he had all the time in the world. And it was like almost scarier, and almost like more violent the way that he slowly approached. And then they're like holding each other under the cage as it comes down, and it's only Nana being like, "Neither of you want to die here," and pushes them in to stop the cage from coming down and like taking their heads off, literally. And then the pace and the unsettling, dark nature of the tone of this match was just insane. Like the level of violence, near unheard of in a promotion that does very violent stuff. Like earlier in the night they had light tubes, right? And that was a case. Like that match was two people sprinting at each other, but just the tone that these two guys set. And then when you combine it with the build, with the matches they had earlier this year, like this rivalry is there's 4 rivalries that I think are the best rivalries that AEW has had. Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega. Hangman Adam Page versus John Moxley. CM Punk versus MJF. Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. You wonder why I get pissed off at how Hangman Adam Page is booked? Why are they not doing this stuff with him all the time when he can do this? Like long-term storylines. This is up there. As I said, they're my 4 favorite storylines. They're all like long-term, booked over months and months at a minimum, if not years. They all have like intense dramatic character arcs for all of them, and this just hit that so well. And yeah, look, the success of this was evident, this match, and the way that it wanted to set up Hangman Page as just this absolutely remorseless psychopath, and truly tragically fallen figure. Because we all know we've all seen the rise of Hangman Adam Page, and this was the fall. Like this literally was the old Joseph Campbell. If you're going on a quest for revenge, you better dig 2 graves, one for the person you're going to kill, and one for yourself. This was the fall of Hangman Adam Page, and it was successful in, after him winning, going up the ramp, looking back down, and the amazing thing is, like, it's split on what was happening. Was he going back down because he experienced a flicker of empathy and like a remembrance of who he was, and wondering what had happened in there, and wanting to go down and like check on Swerve and be like, "Oh, fuck, what have I done? I need to check in on this guy. I nearly killed him. What am I doing?" Or was it, "I see this man stirring. I'm going to go and get him again." And I think that's what the crowd did, because as I said, they squealed. They squealed. Like, that just doesn't normally happen. And that doesn't happen in wrestling. It was a wholly unique reaction. And the strength of the performance of both men in this match. I'm talking a lot about Hangman, but like Swerve also was in there. He was playing his part. Absolutely. And yeah, incredible. So Gareth says it was empathy, in my opinion. You can see it in his eyes. Yeah, but the thing is, the crowd didn't believe it was empathy. The crowd thought it was like they were scared for what was happening. Incredible. Just like, that is complex, multi-level storytelling. No other wrestling company does this. Like, you can have whatever you want. I'm not going to name them because, like, this was just so good. So Gareth says if he wanted to go and finish him for good, I think he would have stepped back. That's fair. That's fair. So this is my second. Pretty obvious what my first is going to be. This is honestly my first. Honestly, it's one of my favorite matches of all time. Maybe, I don't know, if we were to do the AEW match guide again, like I did earlier this year, I did the top 5, the top matches from the first 5 years of AEW. And this next one may well challenge for the number 1 spot. And it's Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson from All. As I said, I had my quibbles with the build, but on the night, this match was something else. This match extracted from me emotions. I talk about in that All Out one, like it extracting emotions that I didn't expect, or that others don't. Like this could have been so cheesy the way that it was, but the way that Bryan Danielson played to his family, I was in tears at multiple points during this match. Floods of tears, not just little trickle, floods of tears. And when he was taking those kicks, screaming at his family that he loves them, I've been emotionally affected by wrestling matches before, but never in that way. And not necessarily like saying like other matches have affected me in different ways and equally, like, but in different ways. But that was a unique feeling for me in wrestling, like him expressing as a father his love for his kids and how that was spurring him on because he wanted to show them and he wanted to fight for them. And then you just add in the fact that it's at like Wembley Stadium on this grand stage, the crowd's so into it, you know, the final countdown at the start, and then the way Swerve does his entrance with like the jacket on, with the stakes of all the people he's beaten, and the stakes of the match as well. Like Bryan Danielson's career is on the line here. Sorry, just having a drink of water. I am getting parched. And then when he wins, like floods of tears. And this has got all of the physicality of, you know, the matches we were talking about before with, you know, Ospreay and Danielson and Swerve and Ospreay. It's got like equal levels of physicality and action and athleticism, but the emotional core of this story is just incredible. So I think this is undeniably my match of the year. I saw it and I was immediately thinking, this is one of the best matches I've ever seen, ever. I often go to my favorite match ever. I often say it's Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kota Ibushi from the G1 final in 2018. And a lot of that is from the spot of Hiroshi Tanahashi getting beaten down by Kota Ibushi and then roaring back across the ring. And that in my mind, like the word cinematic is overused in wrestling. We all know that. But that feels like a moment out of a movie. In that it's like the moment, almost an anime, like Ibushi beats down Tanahashi and he's in the corner and I can see him in an anime bending down, grabbing sand, like the sand, letting it flick through his hands, remembering his family from home, remembering his hometown he's fighting for, remembering all these things, and then coming back and roaring back across the ring. I feel like for that, I've never been as amped up as I was in that moment, like more energized and feeling like the undeniable, ferocious energy and aura of this person, an undeniable force of nature that is Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of the world, coming back after being beaten down. And that moment that I talked about where he's yelling out to his daughter and his son and his wife, like, I don't know, man. I feel like you don't need to even have a family, but I don't know. For me, it feels like I just couldn't. I after this match was finished, I just wanted to go and hug my wife. I wanted to go and hug my daughter, and I did. And like, I've never felt like the emotion like the flood of not sadness, but happiness, joy, love, all those things. Like wrestling, that match made me feel these emotions. And because of the story that it told, because of the characters, man, Swerve's performance in this match as well. Like, talked about that Danielson side of things, but Swerve, the way that he brushes the Busaiku knee off him, amazing. Like, you have no power here. Look, I knew from the minute I saw this match, this was going to be my match of the year. It's like probably my match of the decade, right? Like, it's going to take some topping. Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson. Incredible match. I'm going to have another swig, and then we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you to everyone in the chat, by the way. Awesome to see people in there. It's great to see some chat going. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Hassan. Jumping in there, saying stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. Put stuff in there. Like and subscribe, all that. As I said, we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. It would be awesome if we could hit that 1,000 soon. So if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe. Hit the like. Gareth says, best AEW match ever. It's Danielson, Swerve, or the Revolution tag. Yeah. Look, there's a lot of Cody and Dustin in terms of the emotion, but I feel like just Danielson Swerve athletically and physically in the ring is better. Like, there's a lot of similarities in terms of like family. Obviously, it's different because they're brothers versus what's going on there. But yeah, it's hard to say. Dale M, thank you. I just subscribed yesterday. You guys are great. We appreciate you, Dale. We really love you. Thanks for being along for the ride, mate. So the 2024 Golden Wombats, as I said, Rookie of the Year, Mariah May, Nut Trucker of the Year, Mark Briscoe. Feel like that's one we could maybe nail on for next year even. Unless maybe Eddie Kingston comes back. We'll see how he goes. Anyway, Debutant of the Year, Will Ospreay. Undeniable, that one. That was clear cut. Goober of the Year, Harley Cameron. Promo of the Year, Hangman and Swerve, All Out, Go Home. Wet Fart of the Year, Adam Cole, MJF, and the Undisputed Kingdom. The Undisputed Kingdom, sorry, English people. Sorry, Gareth. Tag Team of the Year, the Young Bucks. Female Wrestler of the Year, Willow Nightingale. Male Wrestler of the Year, Swerve Strickland. And Match of the Year, Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson at All Out. And look, once again, I just want to thank everyone who is part of the Match Guide. I do this because I love it. It's a pleasure to go back and to review these matches. I love the feedback I get. I love it when people jump into the Discord. I love it when people hit me up on Twitter. I even get an email every now and again. SamBrownMedia@gmail.com. I even get an email. Gareth from Wales trying to figure out what I hate more, Undisputed Kingdom or United Kingdom. Don't hate where you're from, mate. But anyway, look, it's a pleasure to do these. I love diving in. As I said, it's like focusing on the things that we love. Of course, it's going to make us happier. Like it's good. It's great for our fandom to focus on these things, and it's amazing to get to do it with the people that I do it with. As I said, like I'm having Joseph Montesilio on. I had Benno from Grapple Pod. These are people that I really respect, and who I've listened to for years, and who are now coming on my podcast and stuff. In a fortnight's time, I've got Tunnel Talk coming on, and we're going to be talking about Arcade Anarchy. That is going to be a hoot, guys. Keep an eye out for that one in a fortnight's time on the 15th. It's going to be Arcade Anarchy with Tunnel Talk. But yeah, look, I just want to shout out to everyone who listens to the Match Guide, who downloads it, who shares it, who rates and reviews it, who's been in the chat here. I love you guys all. It's absolutely a pleasure to get to do this. It's a pleasure to be part of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. As I said, we're having like one of the best weeks we've ever had, I think. We're popping champagne corks in the chat, in the host chat, for all the stuff that's going on. It's awesome to be part of it. And if you want to jump on board with us, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, jump in the Discord. And as I say, if you want to support us financially as well, which we appreciate, it goes towards hosting, it goes towards doing special things, it goes towards things like mics and gear and that sort of stuff that we do. We would appreciate that. 2025, what am I looking forward to in wrestling? A big thing that I'm looking forward to is going to my first AEW show. So I haven't been to an AEW show yet because I live in Australia. The closest AEW show that's happened to me is in Los Angeles, which is a 14-hour flight away, quite a while away from me. So they're coming to Grand Slam. They've suspiciously started not promoting the show. If you looked at World's End, they promoted all the Dynamites in the lead up to Grand Slam, but didn't say anything about that and skipped straight to All In. I get All In is a bit of a bigger deal, particularly given that they're no longer in a stadium here in Australia. They've moved it to the entertainment centre. I think that's a good thing. The last thing I would have wanted is to be in a stadium for 50,000 people with only 10,000 people in it. Would have been a terrible look. Would have sucked to be in that crowd. Instead, I think it's going to be pretty much a packed out show. Really hot. I'm not sure what kind of matches we're going to get and how much build we're going to get. It'll probably just be a blip on the road to Revolution. But look, we can get Mariah May versus Toni Storm. And my hope is Okada versus Fletcher to pay off the win that Fletcher got over him in the C2. That would be great. I know Fletcher is a heel, but coming to Australia, so his home state. But there's things he could do, his home country. There's things that he could do that would instantly get him heat with the home crowd. So we're going up to Queensland. He's from New South Wales. There's a very, very strong rivalry between New South Wales and Queensland. If he turned up in a rugby league state of origin jersey, a Blues one for New South Wales, he would immediately get quite a bit of heat. So hopefully that happens. And then look, honestly, if it's just a bunch of tag matches with, man, I really hope Hangman's there. I'm hoping Swerve will be there as well. The guys that I've seen Moxley live in terms of like my favorite wrestlers of all time. I've seen Moxley live before. I've seen the Bucks live. I've seen Kenny Omega. I've seen Okada. I've seen Tanahashi. I've seen Will Ospreay. There was some New Japan shows that these guys did that came in, and Ospreay, he was not a resident here in Australia. He did quite a few shows in Australia at one point. I've never seen Hangman. And Hangman's right up there as one of my favorites. And Swerve's budding. He's like bubbling on that level. I want to see those two. Obviously, they won't be facing each other, but I really hope they manage to get Hangman across to Australia. I know he loves his family, but make the trip, Hangman. Do it. And Swerve, I just love them to see them in anything. MJF would be fun to see as well. Hopefully he comes out and cuts a promo. That would be hilarious. I'd love that if he cut a promo on the Australians. Maybe they could do him and Kyle Fletcher. I think someone put in the chat there. Do Hangman versus Mox just for me. Look, if they do that for me, Gareth, that would be amazing. But yeah, look, I'm going to wind things up though now. But in 2025, I will finish. Look, I hope in 2025, and I don't know if this is going to happen or not, I hope they manage to refocus AEW on the guys who are the budding generation now, not the guys whose time at the top is on the downswing. I said this at the start of 2024 as well. I was like, Ospreay, Hangman, Jay White, MJF, Swerve, add Kyle Fletcher in there. Kyle Fletcher. Add Daniel Garcia like as upper mid kind of guys. Add Takeshita. Build it around those guys. And you'll have something special. You'll have something different. You'll have a program that is totally different. Is something that WWE couldn't produce now if it wanted. Edge versus Moxley, like Adam Copeland versus Moxley, like, come on. Like, that's... I feel like they're saying we're going to do, like, NWA brawls and stuff. It's going to be derivative of stuff that they can do with... WWE can do with Roman, Cody, Punk, McIntyre. Like, you focus on those other guys who are just different animals to the kind of people they've got in WWE. It's going to be for the better. I hope I hope AEW does that. That's my hope. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I'm still going to follow them. As I said at the start, maybe I'll end up following more New Japan. Who knows? We've got a big couple of days coming up. We've got Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty. It's a good time of the year to be a wrestling fan. There's, we can mope about, we can have a whinge about the things that are going wrong, and it does suck when that sort of stuff happens, but there's a lot to be thankful for as well. I'm looking forward to the All-In match, the All-In show. I'm sure they're going to do some huge stuff there. Obviously, Omega Okada, that's going to be massive. It'll be interesting to see what they put on there. And then, they're going to do other big things as well. It's not just going to be that. And yeah, look, a lot to be thankful for. And if you're along for the ride with me, I appreciate it. As I said, coming up this month, I've got, to let you know a few things I'm working on. I've got, obviously, Arcade Anarchy, doing that with Tunnel Talk. That'll be a blast from the past for sure. And then talking about Danielson versus Eddie with Joseph Montesilio. I've already recorded that. It's going to be I'm looking forward to putting that one out there. Then going forth, later on, I'm looking at doing a focus on MJF. This year I did a focus on Swerve Strickland's rise. I'm looking at doing a focus on MJF because I haven't really done a whole lot on MJF on the podcast. I've only really covered Blood and Guts, which he was in him versus Cody, obviously from start of 2020. So he's come a long way since those. So we're going to do a 3-fortnight focus on MJF, looking at some of the biggest stuff he's done. And then I'm really looking forward to digging into this Hangman heel turn. I did really enjoy it. And there's lots of other matches out there as well. But if you want to suggest something for me to cover on the pod, particularly if it's one from a while ago that you think a lot of people have forgotten about, jump onto the Discord, put it in there, recommend it. I'd love to do it. I love nothing. I love digging into my favorite, my absolute top favorite. Of course, that's like the time I get to eat my cake. But something else I love is when someone wants me to do something that's like totally different. One of my favorite podcasts I ever did, and for some reason it's like one of the most listened to as well, was Maki Ito versus Ryo Mizunami from inside from inside Emi Sakura's gym during the height of the pandemic when they did that tournament, that women's tournament in Japan. It was so fun, like totally off the beaten path. Not something you'd ever think people would want to hear about, but apparently they did. It's one of my most downloaded episodes somehow, and I loved recording it. So if you've got a match like that you'd like me to cover, jump in the Discord and suggest it. And I'd love to cover it. And if you've got people you'd like me to try and collaborate with, you can let me know that as well. But yeah, look, I've kind of plugged everything already. The merch, the YouTube, the Discord. Subscribe, review, rate, like, all those things. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to everyone out there. It's been a pleasure to be back on the podcast with you guys in 2024, hoping for bigger and better things in 2025. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for joining me today live. Thank God the technology held up, and I will catch you again soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the AEW Match Guide podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then you can subscribe on the podcast app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Also, feel free to let me know on Twitter @Sir_Samuel. I'd love to hear from you. The AEW Match Guide podcast is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where you can find many other fantastic podcasts discussing not just AEW, but all parts of the world of professional wrestling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Sam Brown.
Wow. What's up?
I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.